We're going to go over the 4 pillars of the omni-channel strategy. And I have gotten more than one request to talk about non-fungible tokens and Bitcoin technology. It's kind of a primer for all of you who have deciding whether or not you think it's serious enough for you to attempt to understand it. Hopefully I'll give you some idea of how to understand it in a proper context. This conversation is as much the why Bitcoin is important as to how it works. For how it works, I firmly ask you to, I recommend Mr. C or Mr. Files. They are geniuses on this. So without further ado, let us finish this chapter on the Omni-Channel. And when last we left off, we were talking about just the last part that said that not all firms want to be in the Omni-Channel environment. There are many systems that prefer cash as a classic example. I would also say that one of the more unique places, IKEA, is one of those corporations which is world renowned, has 52 stores in the United States, doesn't have really any plans to grow in an online presence, and they're quite happy with it. It just kind of really depends on the environment itself. Of course, digital industries such as music and publishing, where would they be without it? And there's this inherent push for everything to be digital, especially in the publishing industry. Whereas others like automobile manufacturers, their online presence is purely informational. Perhaps not, I shouldn't say that much if you consider Tesla as part of the automobile industry and they have no dealerships. Maybe that would be the other way to look at it as well. So depending on those, if you're looking at an online presence, you're looking really at 4 main important pillars in order for this to be able to be successful. If you're going to be able to make it successful, you're going to have to integrate retail, the mobile channels, mass communication. All of it has to be integrated together, and it has to ultimately do good. It has to maximize the consumer's experience. It has to be able to satisfy the consumer and hopefully allow them to demand more. And so these are what these 4 pillars are. Each one of these is important and necessary, and they're all vital in order to achieve some given success, because without one, in essence, as it looks, the whole thing would start falling apart. And so we're actually going to start not in this order. We're going to start first with a concept of harnessing customer knowledge, all right? In order for the omni-channel to be successful, the omni-channel has to invest themselves in getting all the information that they can from their consumers as much as possible. And that is a very difficult thing, because when we consider it, the consumer, especially in the omni-channel environment, takes many different pathways ultimately in making their choices. What we hope to do, the key goal in this, is to find out what drives a customer to choose a particular channel at each particular stage of the process. That is the key goal. In grabbing this customer knowledge, ultimately what you're trying to do is try to find out what drives the consumer to choose this channel at this particular stage. Because if we can understand that, then hopefully what we can do is enhance the customer experience all the way through. It's this deep data-driven understanding and this appreciation of the customer. Ultimately, once we understand that, then we can start to integrate that data together and create viable segmentation information or segmentation based upon how the customer buys. There are many different ways that customers can come about buying an item. They can be, as Amazon, go from the very beginning of the information stage all the way to the purchasing process to the point that it shows up on your door. You can do it like I have over the last 2 years, or a year and a half especially. I have invested myself in buy online, pick up in store. So it means that I buy the goods online, and I would simply prefer to go get the goods myself, especially with the fact that it just takes so much longer now, all right? We want to find out who uses one or more channels and does one or more of their shopping there, because hopefully what we'll do is at that critical point, provide some kind of advantage for them. So BOP or BOPUS, whichever you want to say it, buy online, pick up in store, has created the advent of these coupons where when you go into the store, you pick up your good, you're given an additional 10 or 20% to continue to shop. Why is this important? So there's some piece of data that we have found out, and kind of think about it. A customer will buy more if they go in the store to pick something up versus if they go in the store and it's delivered to them. Or in other words, all deliveries, consumers spend less money than when consumers go into the store. Why do you think that? Why? What is it about consumers going into the store that makes them buy more?
See everything.
Yes, exactly, Freddie. If impulse shopping is not possible online, all right? But if I can get the consumer in the store where they will make an impulse purchase, they invariably buy more from me, which is one of the reasons why Amazon, even though they're going to be led kicking and screaming to the retail outlet, eventually they will, all right? I've heard they've put they're looking at buying Kohl's, by the way. It's on the back burner right now. The real reason that they want those locations in the stores, it's not necessarily Kohl's sales. But one of the reasons why is that Amazon is finally reluctantly coming around to the idea that they're missing all impulse shopping, and consumers, US consumers, do a substantial amount of impulse shopping. So they're missing that. Okay. So we just want to find ways that we can integrate this information together, find the unique touch points that consumers, when they're going through the process. And ultimately what we want to do is we want to be able to coordinate all of this together and achieve some kind of greater satisfaction for the consumer, okay? So harnessing customer knowledge. The next is, the truth is, technology is the main reason that omni-channel is possible at all. And as I've talked about before, the omni-channel is something of a happy accident, for the lack of a better word. It's not like some brilliant marketing person came up with the idea that, well, people are carrying around their phones now, we'll start to advertise. No, that's not how it happens. As Jack Sheff said, marketing is context driven. We watch what consumers do. And when mobile technology came around, the most natural thing in the world was when they were at Circuit City, when there was such a thing, is that they were going to compare prices with Circuit City while they're browsing around. And so it's this maximum use of technology that hopefully is going to allow us to integrate inventory management, the availability online, in-store pickup, and let me also say price and product comparisons as well. And instead of running away from those, they embrace them now, which they should have, all right? It just simply makes it that easy. When it's a shopping item, consumers desire to shop. And if they can't see one or more of the items that they desire, well, they'll seek them out. And it's better to seek them out in the store than to go somewhere else, all right? And so this leveraging of the technology, hopefully what you're going to do is you're going to understand the customer's journey from the beginning to the end. We have to adopt more than one channel because consumers make many stops along the way when they're making a purchase, not only online, not only on the mobile phone, but we have to embrace social media because so many of the consumer stops happen at social media. And we know this, of course, is that consumers consider product consumer evaluations far more than they believe anything else. And so we have to manage those evaluations or at least answer to them. Otherwise, a challenge unanswered ultimately means a consumer that isn't satisfied, all right? Now, what it also means is that if we're going to do this, then we've got to make sure that we have a secure and safe system as well. And so we have to protect the consumer and their privacy. We have to make sure that the transactions are secure. We also have to make sure that when we have promotions, that they're network up to date and not lagging behind. It demands a higher level of interaction and connection by the stores themselves and the companies. Otherwise, we get in a serious issue like T-Mobile did. T-Mobile was selling their cell phones in their stores with a $20 fee, whereas if they were online, the $20 fee was waived. We have to keep up, all right? One of the other things that we try to hopefully do is that we try to avoid what's known as the endless aisle. And so the endless aisle means that whenever we're doing a particular transaction, that it doesn't seemingly run forever and ever into items that the consumer wasn't caring for in the first place. And so that's another leveraging of the technology. Amazon seems to wallow in it. Other corporations like Jet and Walmart have decided to back that off. And they just find that if they focus on what the consumers are looking for in the first place, that the endless aisle scenario doesn't pop up. So some industries have been slow. They use the healthcare industry as one of those that has been fragmented and slow to change. But the healthcare industry has had a huge bump since this book was put out, of course, for COVID. And we find now that where there was a reluctance to do video chat and those kind of things, it's now full speed ahead. The last couple of checkups that I've had with my doctor is in Columbia, Mississippi, and he and I have done them online. So just think about the enormous savings that it's been that way. It has been slow, but it has finally kind of ground in their direction. And when you use good technology and you're collecting valuable information, you start to be able to use software such as data analytics, where you start to optimize what the consumer's wish list is based upon their past experience. You're able to bundle together product ideas where you didn't before. You can limit products in certain channels so that they're focusing only on those things and those things only. As I said before, you eliminate the endless aisle. This is what good technology is supposed to do, all right? It kind of prevents that, and it kind of bundles you together with ultimately should be the best value that you have. So leveraging technology. Channel relationships does not mean the relationship between the corporation and the consumer. It means the relationship between channel partners. So the manufacturers, the wholesalers, and the retailers. That's what this managing relationships with channel partners means. How successfully we manage our interactions with our partners in the omni-channel very well can mean not only success or failure, but success or going out of business. The omni-channel demands that there be as little conflict as possible and as much integration as possible. And so there needs to be a greater focus on the whole rather than the sum of the parts, which means that we have to try to avoid organizational silos for the good of the whole. In other words, no corporation can act like an island in which they can run their businesses without some kind of interaction from the other corporations as well. You need to do audits to find out what particular product lines you're running, which may be in conflict with other channel partners. Your channel partners also should fully understand their role in the omni-channel environment and your importance to their company as well. And the last is that franchisees very much need to be in the vendor management system in the same way that Walmart manages its vendors. There needs to be real-time connection so that you know how each franchise is doing, not just that day, but every moment. And these things can be done without being too obtuse. And so in the managing of the channel partners, what you look for is you look for ways of making sure there is no conflict of interest and ways that you can improve cohesion between its partners. The last is that when you have these threes together, the last thing you need to know is you need to know how well you're doing. And so there's three ways, three categories of assessment: utilization, engagement, and the conversion rate. And it doesn't mean money. Utilization is how do your customers utilize the different channels: retail channel, social media, mobile app, delivery, pickup. How do the customers utilize those different channels? And by utilize, I mean exactly what it sounds like. How do they use them? Is the mobile channel only there for information purposes? Do you actually pay on the mobile channel as well? Do you pick up in the store? Do you pick up at the curb? Or do you have it delivered? The next is engagement, and this is how your corporation connects to the consumer. And so by that is that when I collect enough information about the consumer, I understand their buying habits. Do the consumers get their recommendations for purchases from algorithms that are written into the software? These suggestions. Jet.com had a great dynamic search engine. That's really the core of what Walmart bought when they bought Jet.com, is they bought that particular whole, and it actually, in a way, works as an impulse generator for Walmart. It works very well. Is it store-driven? Or does the customer itself, the customer themselves interact? How much time do they spend on social media? Do they look at reviews? Do they spend time on the website and app? Generally, as a rule of thumb, the higher the risk and the greater amount of dollars, there's a considerably higher percentage of customer-led engagement than there is in the store. As risk and capital payments increase, the greater the amount of customer-led engagement. Finally, the conversion rate is not money, but conversion rate is of those individuals who are actively seeking information. How many of them actually purchase? This number used to be in the single digits. We're finding that conversion rates are climbing, but it's also kind of an interactive thing as well, because the conversion rates are higher when the engagement is customer-led, because the customer is the one who is out there actively seeking their answers, because what's happened is they've already made the decision to purchase. And once you make the decision to purchase, then you're looking for the best deal. All right, so this kind of last thing that kind of puts this all together to talk about it. So you have the touch points that happen through the store, the web, the phone, mobile apps, social media. You have the store-driven engagements, recommendations that will come up and may be driven by some discounts and bargains that are coming up. You have the customer out there actually engaging, using social media, word of mouth, spending time, and then ultimately they all come out to success with cross-channel conversion. The only two in here I'm going to want you to know, one is lifetime value. And lifetime value basically means how much will a consumer buy from you in a given lifetime. Consumer lifetime value. Consumer lifetime value is driven by the concept that our customers are assets to the corporation. And that as assets, we invest in our consumers just as much as we invest in our products. So if we look at the lifetime value, our customer lifetime value as a rubric, it helps us to appreciate our consumers a lot more. The lifetime value of a dedicated Taco Bell customer is $12,000. That's a lot of tacos, but it's the truth. Just think about what lifetime value if you're a loyal GM owner or a Ford dealer, that kind of thing. It will put all of these things into perspective. Okay, and that is it, and that wraps up. Okay, so I've done this research on non-fungible tokens, and I've done it on blockchain technology. This will not be testable, but it's information and knowledge that I think is going to be important to you, especially later. And I want my students to have the jump on anyone else. I want you to be able to understand it before someone else is, because this is your future and it's not as much mine. My job is to try to be able to help you understand it. And that's hopefully what I'll do. So I started doing research. For those of you who know Mr. C has been on talking about blockchain technology and those kind of things, cryptocurrencies, for a long time. And like a lot of professors, I haven't necessarily understood it as well as I could. I was in a party at Christmas, and I had somebody ask me what I thought about Web 3.0 and about non-fungible tokens. And I suddenly realized something big had happened and I didn't see it. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where as a as a teacher, you say something has passed you by, and you need to understand what it means. I think I've talked about this before when mobile phones came in, or I should say, smartphones came in 2009, and I asked my class at Louisiana Tech how many had them, and they all had them. I realized I had missed something. And so this is me backtracking, hopefully giving a little bit of knowledge to you. So one of the things when I want to start to talk about it is we're going to talk about concepts and ideas that we call constructs. And so what a construct is it's an abstract idea given some kind of form. And so examples would be emotion. That would be an idea that would be given form. And usually the way you give this form is you ask questions like, are you angry? Or those kind of things. Or are you happy? And these are ways that we work at trying to understand things that we can't see. It's like we don't see the planets that circle suns. We don't have telescopes that can do that, but we have measuring devices that can measure the wobble of a sun that says that there's something with gravity that's pulling it. We have Doppler effects that can stretch out the wavelength that tells us certain planets exist. Well, that's pretty much what we do here when we talk about items that are abstract, but they have existence, they're real. And so I'm going to do some of these and hopefully try to help you along the way. So the first thing, I don't know if you ever saw this, but Jack Dorsey sold his very first tweet for $2.9 million, all right? He sold it as a non-fungible token. Now, I also saw where somebody tried to buy it back, I think for $3,600 or something like that. So I'm not sure if it kept its value, but NFTs, or these picture things here, are actually being sold on Etsy now. So you're talking about an abstract idea that has come into its own and been given form and is real. And so I've been trying to wrap myself in how do I understand this is a picture. It can be copied over and over again. What makes this single first tweet by Jack Dorsey worth $2.9 million? It's like Dr. Fayez, when he and I were talking, his point was, is it real? I mean, does it make sense? And so I started doing research and I started looking at comments. One of the ways that we try to find out information is we look at how others comment on things, and we try to look at the underpinning of the comments and find out what the comments mean. And so I have observations here, just like I would have observations if I were looking through a telescope when I was coming up with these thoughts. So the first thing we need to do is we have to define what is an NFT, or a non-fungible token. So a non-fungible token, I like to call it a non-fungible item. To me, it makes more sense. But it is a product that has a unique digital signature that makes that particular product distinctive and original. And so what that means is that with this GIF here, or GIF, whatever one way you want to produce it, all right, this picture here that's online, that under the picture itself, stored within the code of this, is a series of algorithms with my name, my date, the time that I produced it, a unique identifying idea. And not only that, but this particular information can remain anonymous so that nobody knows who I am, but it is still unique and distinctive. And so what this brings to you is existence, uniqueness, but anonymity all at the same time. And that's a really fascinating idea. So some quotes from Coinbase from Mr. Files. an NFT is a certificate of authenticity of a digital artifact. And so if I'm looking at information, this word authenticity, I'm underlining with red lines. NFTs are built using a standard. And so you use a standard program that is agreed on by all of the users and makers of NFTs and blockchains. And so you're using a technology which everybody says is cool and we respect and we agree with. Unique tokens represent ownership of a specific asset, and that can be real, or let's just say it can be specific with your own name, or it can be anonymous as well. And Mr. File said something that to me is one of the great statements, is that an NFT is a contract. So think of legitimate power, all right? Think of what legitimate power says and what a contract is. In form of what we call legal legitimate power, you're going to see that coming up. An NFT is a contract. It is a sincere is a word that is important, a sincere agreement that this is real. So if I were to look at a chart here on the NFT internet and the internet today, this is the web 2.0 and this is the web 3.0. All right, on the internet today, a copy is just like any other digital ownerships are stored in servers in an institution. You have to take their word for it. Companies with digital items build their own infrastructures. They rely on that infrastructure, and then those platforms, they retain the majority of the profits. That's from Ethereum 2022. In Web 3.0, NFTs are digitally unique. No two NFTs are the same. Every NFT must have an owner, and this is a public record, easy to verify. They're compatible with all blockchain technologies, including Ethereum. There are open source blockchains as well, so you don't have to use a proprietary blockchain. Ethereum is the most recognized open source now. You can sell that anywhere in the world. You can access it on a global market. You can store it locally on your own phone. You can store it in your own blockchain yourself, and you retain ownership, and you can sell those rights directly or not, okay? So you can even use those items as a collateral. And so think about it. If you can use that as collateral, it has value, and that's where we're pointing to. So how do we do this? Has anybody done this, by the way? So this is how you do it. I signed up with a corporation called Crypto. So you enroll in a website that supports NFT creation. So I signed on with Crypto. You need to have an ID, and the ID must be verified. You have to have a state-sponsored identification. My driver's license was smudged, so I couldn't use my driver's license. I had to use my passport. The picture has to match the identification. Now, you create a product, and I use that in a broad sense. So it can be a painting, it can be a GIF, it can be tickets to a game, you can be tokens for like a performance. In other words, when a completion certificate, and you verify that you have the intellectual property rights. You pick a marketplace to distribute that item, okay? You run the encryption code. You set up what's called a wallet, and exactly like a wallet is a place to store your NFTs, and then you distribute it onto the blockchain network. It goes out into the blockchain network. It connects itself. So your GIF goes out there, connects, the gears mesh together, and the reliability is such that in order for someone to cheat, you have to have over 50% of all of the individuals in the entire blockchain environment agree to cheat, which is impossible, all right? You have to have the thousands of individuals get together to do that. And so this is a basic process. So I go online, I create anything, I can create a little drawing, a diagram, I run it through it and create an NFT, I send it out to one of the blockchains, and then if I want to, somebody can bid on it, and I can give that individual that item access rights, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And so this is the process. Yeah, Fred.
The blockchain is just the marketplace.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. I hadn't thought about that. I don't remember that. Yeah, the blockchain is the marketplace. The blockchain is just, if you think about it, it's like, oh gosh, what's the word I'm trying to use? It's like just going out and selling, like the farmer's market, okay? The blockchain is like the farmer's market where everything connects to everything. And the unique thing is that your things connect to other things, and your things make the other thing real, and the others make your thing real. They all kind of connect together. When you want to sell it, you just pull it out. The blockchains kind of fold back together on each other, and you just go on. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I'm gonna remember that. So all technology, or let's just say all marketing, starts with a value formula, okay? What I wanted to do is to see whether or not non-fungible tokens were made it into the value formula. So this is one of the most valuable, the most basic ones. I've seen what we receive divided by what we give up. It means pretty much the same thing. Value is what we get minus or divided by what we give up in order to get it. Value kind of takes in everything, not only the tangible, but the intangible as well. And so if it's the hours that we have to go through in order to get this particular item, or the hours that we have to go through in order to produce it, all of that makes it into the value formula. And what I wanted to do is to see, does it fit? Does value come in here someplace? So I came up with this value formula. And so what we have here is we have a GIF, ideal, work performed, and I call this intellectual property because in its basis, that's what intellectual property is. It's not the comic books, it's not the physical, tangible part. Intellectual property is the essence of what makes that unique and special, the IP, all right? The non-fungible token part is the interaction that is created to be able to take this intellectual property combined with the non-fungible process that ultimately creates the value. So this was a quote from Barber 2021. There's not only value on the object, but also a cost, emphasizing the substance and value of ownership and of itself. This has value untethered from the object or the thing. And so this unique intellectual property, this intangible thing, because of the non-fungible process, creates it and makes it tangible, all right? If this were just a GIF that had no processing built onto it, then it could be produced infinite number of times and its value would be limited. Now, what I'm trying to do now is to try to find out what it is. And so I'm starting to invest myself in descriptions of it, just like I would be getting descriptions of these planets that I can't see. And so I've already read about authenticity before. So I got this. NFT is not the artwork. It is a digital form of authenticity, all right? It is very much as I paint something, all right? And I create something from my mind. The authentic part of it is it's physically putting paint on canvas, all right? Now, it's also important to realize is that when I work on something and I create this item, that not only does it give value to the item, but it gives value back to me. I practice, I get better, I become more experienced. All of those things create co-creation into the maker of those items as well. So these are some of the things. They approved me, I became an artist. The competition is for attention, but not for the work as much as the relationship between the creator and the buyer. The buyer co-creates value with the maker because they see and appreciate the uniqueness and specialness of it, all right? NFTs are said to make owners of users, creators of consumers, and the creativity is through the use. And so I'm a teacher, and you are one of, not necessarily a product, but one of the things I'm trying to do is impart knowledge on you. And you create value in that, and it makes you more valuable to employers out there. By the very same token, I practice, and I become better as a teacher by teaching you. And this is the process that goes on over and over again. You craft beer, Freddie. The beer gets better and you get better at the same time. That's the same thing. Not only that, but all of these things are processes that can be considered or called ritual, all right? We do a ritualistic behavior, talk in a certain way to each other. It brings an authenticity because we work in an honest and straightforward, forthright manner that produces value, and we follow that path. The authority of record comes not from any sovereignty, but the familiar production of distributed ledger and the replication of the whole chain with the every user. It puts on distinctly ethological approach to cooperation, to shared interests. NFTs refer ownership not to the work, but to the encounter we have with each other. And so the ritual behavior is also one of those things that adds and creates value as well. When you start meeting friends here at the university, studies show that within 6 weeks, you start to have ritualistic pattern behavior with each other. You greet each other in the same way. You start wearing clothes that might be familiar with each other as well. It's normal, all right? So this is one of the first things. So I talked about a construct. What is in this non-fungible token? What is it made up of? Well, the first is it's made up of authenticity. It is a real thing. Part of that is the consumer's co-creation of the authenticity. The consumer who receives the goods and looks upon it as real, and it is real. But the authenticity is also brought about through ritual behavior by the artist. So communal orientation, artists talking to artists, the reproduction of a particular order, the co-constructed interactions between the author and the good that they're making. And then the ritualistic behavior confers upon it rights and obligations. You have succeeded, you are an artist. And you're conferred all of the rights and obligations that an artist would have. And it's these ritualistic behaviors that is not unlike things that we're doing now, all right? Learning in a class, it's a ritualistic behavior. Creating an NFT, it's a ritualistic behavior. So this leads on to another thing. So now we're talking about stuff we've already covered in the class, okay? Legitimate power and trust. An NFT record of ownership rendering the relation itself non-fungible, and the same notice of trust, as it were, is a testimonial of the genuine object. It is a testimonial. Now, there's a concept that's known as proof of work, which says that the artist themselves goes through due diligence to make sure that their creation is real and that they are working on the authentic process. And that interlinks the digital world with the analog world. It creates a transparable, verifiable trust network between the worlds. Now, here's a key phrase. The energy expended is voluntary. It's all voluntary. It's committed to the fair play of the game itself. It's the carrot and not the stick. What does fair play mean to you? What would you say? Fair, the one I come up with, fair play means everybody plays by the same rules. Okay, that's what fair play means to me. Fair play doesn't mean you play easy or you play rough. What it means is that everybody plays by the same rules. And that's the essence of what makes NFTs so valuable and the cryptocurrencies and the Bitcoins, is that everybody plays by the same rules, where everything on the universe is about, on the internet is about cheating, all right? The Web 3.0 is about verifying its realness. And that is one of the great things about the Web 3.0. It is verifiable, it is real, it is unique, and it is protected. All of those things. And so this last one, fair play is the morality of the blockchain, I think is basically what says it. We hold these things to be fair because we believe it is fair. And the technology itself has been built with the whole concept that fair play is important. And so the next thing I write up is this right here. So remember, legitimate power, all right? So non-fungible token is trust and commitment, just like Morgan and Hunt. It is legitimate power. It is traditional legitimate because we respect it as a contract. And it is a legal legitimate power because it's a contract and we respect it, but a traditional legitimate power because we accept it as being a norm and we're willing to conform to that norm as well. And so this is the essence of what NFTs are. And so this is my theory of the dimensions of a non-fungible token of blockchain and what is its essence that creates value. At its core, it follows under the definition of commitment and trust by Morgan and Hunt. It is legitimate under the definition by Lush, 1976, and it is consistent with the definition of authenticity by Arnold Price of 2000, which says that authenticity is sincere without dissimilitude. It is honest. And it is honest both because it is tangibly honest, we trust it, and we internally, even if it's non-tangible, we trust it as well. And so these are the parts. And so one of the things about breaking down its essence and seeing what it is you can kind of predict where it's going to go in the future. And so this is kind of what I'm doing. But before I go on, there's one more step. In the theory formula, one of the things that we note also is that there's a cost to its energy. So I had this spirited discussion with Mr. Files that energy doesn't use any. But then again, there's also those who might say that it does use energy. But ultimately what it does is it doesn't matter because it also shows that there is cost in the creation of NFT value, which is important because it confirms the whole value formula. So these are the conclusions that I come up with. Non-fungible tokens, blockchain, cryptocurrencies have value. They're composed of multi-dimensional characteristics, authenticity, commitment, trust, and legitimate power. And we know these things because the observations confirm them to be. It's important also that when we separate those things, that we kind of really get a better idea that the NFT part is important when it comes to taking the pictures and the GIF, but perhaps that's not ultimately where its greatest value will come. So the value to consumers, while in the art field is laudable, there's actually a greater value that it can confer. They communicate authenticity in the exchange process on a medium that is totally valueless and willing at any time to try to rip you off. It communicates trust in an untrustworthy medium. It transports value across intangible and tangible media. And for many of you who might, this is my 5th grade definition in the civics of money. It's a unit of exchange, it's a store of wealth, excuse me, a store of value and a measure of wealth. So it actually does all of those things. And by the very same token, this is what cryptocurrencies do. Now, what makes cryptocurrencies so unique is that they're decentralized and their value does not come from a government. If you ever look at your money, it says good for all debts, public and private. Money has traditionally had value because governments have said it's worth this much money. What makes cryptocurrency so unique is that there's nothing that guarantees its value other than the consumer's trust that it is valuable. The very same things that we're talking about here, all right? So are cryptocurrencies real? Yes. Are Bitcoins real? Yes. Is the blockchain real? Yes. Are NFTs real? Yes. But I don't think their value is ultimately in the art field. So where I think their greatest value is their ability to transmit value in a truly electronic medium, all right? And so I think in the not too distant future, non-fungible tokens will be given out with your diplomas and you'll store them on your phone, okay? And so your certificates and your certifications will be stored on your phone or mobilely in what I call an education wallet, because that's where they all get stored. So your BS, your MBA, MS, PhD, certifications, all of that will be stored on your phone. I also feel, because of their ability to be authentic and real, that as a writer, with plagiarism being one of those things that's very difficult, I think that when I publish a journal article, eventually what you're going to see is that journal article is going to be they'll give out a non-fungible token as well, which says this is real. It makes sense. So like these 5 journal articles I have, they would fit in a curriculum Bible wall, where all of those things. I think you'll be able to carry all of your valuable information with you. So instead of you having to have a CV or a resume, you'll be able to put your phone right next to someone else and have that information transfer automatically. And then the last thing that I believe is going to eventually happen is that you're going to have wallets within wallets. You're going to be able to eventually carry all of your identification, all of your information, all on your wallet. And because it is encrypted, it is unbreakable, and it is in many ways, unless somebody comes up with something else, it can't be copied. I mean, it could be copied, but the verification can't be duplicated. It's going to be real, and you're going to be carrying your authenticity wherever you go. Now, this is stuff I thought up in January. I found an article in Coinbase on 2021 in October that said 5 uses for NFTs, and somebody said something about education. So I'm not the first one that thought of it, but I got to give them credit because I was thinking the same way. So ultimately, this is where I think the future is going to be. I don't think the future is going to be in the value of creating a picture online, but I think the ability of carrying along documents that are real, authentic, and uncopyable, I think ultimately that's where the future is going to go. Any questions? I went flying through that. Yes.
For like the NFTs, especially like that tweet at the beginning, what do people do with that? Like if you buy a tweet?
Usually what you'll do is you'll store it. It's stored either usually on a mobile phone or computer, or you can store it on the larger Ethereum blockchain. And it's recognized as being yours, as being unique. It's either one or the other. The thing about what makes blockchain unique is that it's decentralized, which means it doesn't need a central computer network system to work. It can be stored anywhere. Usually it's stored somewhere local. The difficulty, of course, is if it's a decentralized network, there's always a possibility of your machine blowing up and losing things. So I remember a story of somebody who lost hundreds of thousands of dollars that way. So this is a true story. So I don't know if I told this one yet, but there was a cosplay contest, or it was at a, oh gosh, at one of these Comic-Cons. And there were 4 prizes. So there was a $1,000 first prize, a $500 second prize, a $250 third prize, and 5 fourth prizes of 10 Bitcoins. This is 2011. Want to know how much those Bitcoins are worth now? Look up the price of Bitcoin. Anybody right now. Freddie will look it up.
About 38 grand.
38 grand, right. So those 10 Bitcoins, if they'd have kept them, is now worth $380,000. Yeah. So it's real. It's the last way of saying it. So,
Do they appreciate or depreciate, or like how do they hold it up?
you know, it's a good question. The only way that they hold value is how much the value consumers, how much do consumers value them? Its literal value is created by how consumers buy them. It's the true market. So if you're willing to buy it at $60,000, it's worth $60,000. And that's why you see wild fluctuations in it. Gonna be kind of interested. I guess now Musk has bought Twitter. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to Bitcoin up and down like that. Now, because of the inflation, it's kind of interesting because it's actually acting in the opposite way. Usually with gold or silver in inflationary cycles, they go up. But Bitcoin is actually in the value going down. I think it peaked at like 62,000, something like that. So I have a nephew of mine who got into Bitcoin in 2010. I wish I had listened to him. But yeah, it's all based upon what you think it's worth. That's it. But the fact that you think it's worth something, that states everything. Okay. It's amazing. Done? Okay. Folks, it's been a pleasure. I hope you've learned something. There's 2 times for the finals. We have another class as well. If you need me to change your final time, just let me know. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. Hope to see you around the hallways in the fall. And if you're graduating, good luck. I'm still here. If you need a recommendation, let me know. Okay. All right, folks. Take care. You bet.
Back to the last 30.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be online?
Yeah, I'll put it online for you. No, that won't be on the test.